Hello and welcome to Budget in Focus, where we discuss Budget 2025, the PPP's farewell budget, a policy for public pilfering and corruption. I'm Marvin Williams, your host. Today, at this time, we'll be having a conversation with a very important gentleman who's just made his contribution to the budget debate 2025. I'm joined by Mr. Shurwayne, Forbes Kennedy holder, chairman of the People's National Congress Reform, and he is shadowing the oil sector and the public infrastructure area. Welcome, Shurwayne, to this Budget in Focus conversation.
Thanks, Marv. Thanks for having me.
After what I consider a fantastic presentation in the National Assembly, I am certain that the national population is looking forward with high expectations to the return of the APNU to the seat of government based on the measures that you have outlined. But before we get to those measures that the party intends to put in place as a new government, let's discuss briefly the campaign of lies of the PPP. They told the nation in the run-up to the 2020 elections that they were going to renegotiate this oil contract, that it was a lopsided contract, it was a bad contract, it was no good for this country. And they also said they will revisit all other contracts that the APNU AFC government left when the government changed in 2020. Specifically this oil contract. No sooner did the PPP get into the seat of government that they turned their backs on this business of renegotiation. They decided that contract sanctity was what this was about. They cannot interfere with this contract. This same lopsided contract that is giving them all of the revenues to do what they're doing, to enrich themselves, friends, families, and favorites, as you will say, and some would add flatterers. Talk to us about this campaign of lies that continue into 2025.
Yeah, thanks, Marv. I did mention it in my budget presentation. You know, the PPP, this is who they are. The campaign on this specific issue, it was one of their major campaign issues during the run-up to the 2020 elections. In fact, as soon as they lost government in 2015, we can go back, way back there, if we can pull up the records, and you will see no other than the vice president making these claims, making a claim for renegotiation of the contract, dishing out all sorts of bad things about the contract for which they have been benefiting tremendously in the last 4 to 5 years.
91% of the national revenue comes from there.
Correct. The economy has grown by big double-digit figures, 43%, 43.6, I believe, percent last year. The years prior, you had double-digit figures. It went down a little and up back, but never where we were before. We never are back to where we were before. Oil has certainly made a difference. But coming back to the hypocrisy and the lies by the People's Progressive Party, this is who they are. They told us that when they lost government, they said that they wanted a clean voter list. You could remember that. They wanted a clean voter list, and Jagdeo gave a whole description about the voting process and everything around that, and said that you'll have to get biometrics. And 5 years later, in government, they refused to do that. They made a U-turn on it. So it's the same thing with the oil contract. They campaigned on it. They made it the biggest campaign issue. When they got government, they just turned their backs. They believe somehow that oil will keep them in power. The little handouts, what they can share, they might share 2 or 3 more cash grant. Since it's an election year, we can expect that they will run to certain communities, poor communities, and dole out whatever they have to dole out in an attempt to boost their numbers, because they know that they are in trouble now. So they never had any interest in renegotiating. This is the way I view it. They never had an interest in it. They're always in they're always they have a way of collaborating. Let me use that word, collaborating with companies and contractors. And this is just another example of it. You can't trust these people. Period.
Yesterday, economist, accountant, educator Ra Lucas shared some time with me on Nation Watch, breaking the numbers down and showing where the government was in fact attempting to hoodwink Guyanese people when the numbers that they have produced tell the real story about what's happening in our country and how the money is really not getting into the pockets of the people, where the numbers, the growth figures are not hitting the table of the poor and working class in this country. Immediately, almost immediately, Irfan Ali came out on a program to attempt to rebut that which Mr. Lucas discussed with the public. Clearly, the People's Progressive Party is in panic mode, attempting to manipulate numbers to fool people. Clearly, they're in panic mode. You have perhaps add some salt to the wounds by ensuring that you outlined the parties, some of the parties' plans going forward as the new government to take office in a short while. What, in your opinion, was the reaction? I was not in the house, but I could hear the noises from where I am. What was the reaction of the People's Progressive Party when you outlined some of those plans?
Well, I would say they were panicking. They are panicking. You could tell from the noise in the house. They didn't want me to continue to speak. They didn't want the Guyanese people to hear what we have to offer as a new government. I was comparing their figures against ours, what we have to offer. For example, teachers or all public servants, we will be offering a 35% increase on their salaries. The PPP has already proposed 8% increase. So I simply compared that. I compared the threshold, the non-taxable threshold as well. They offered 130,000. We have been saying over the last year or 2 years that we will carry it up to $400,000. That is where the bulk of the poorer working class, that is where they are. And so we targeted, it's a deliberate attempt to target the poorer class of people. They will pay no tax. And so these measures somehow, I believe it really hurt them badly. They were in full panic mode. They were shouting, they were yelling. Maybe you can't hear it through the microphone. You might have heard a little bit of it. But I was focused. I was focused as our government would be. We will not be distracted by the noise from the other side. We have a focused plan. We have a people-centered approach which focuses on people and put people at the center of our development in this country. I've said that you had a big uproar when I said we'll put oil money in the hands of the people, and it takes me to the point where just about a year and a half ago, no other person but the president himself, I recall it being sometime in January of 2023, Irfan Ali said that cash grants were not feasible in 2023. Throughout 2024, from then to ending of 2024, the vice president echoed the same thing. He echoed the same thing. In fact, he went forward. He said that we want to eat out the money and all these ridiculous things. Up to October 2024, he was saying, when the press asked Irfan Ali about these huge cash grants that the opposition is talking about, he said, no, we will make sensible decisions. We can't do that. But 4 months later, when they recognize that the population is shifting, the population is now interested in what we have to say because the PPP has failed them, turned their back on them. They have not managed the economy properly. The inflation rate is much higher than they are projecting it to be, especially the food inflation rate many times over. And so they are in trouble. And that is why you hear all that noise when I'm laying out these facts, when I was laying out these facts to the National Assembly and by extension to the people of Guyana.
Well, it's clear that not just mismanagement, but the corruption, the level of it appears as though mismanagement is deliberate. It's deliberate so that it becomes an enabler
It amounts
for the
to corruption.
corrupt to the
Once
corrupt practices.
it is deliberated amounts to corruption.
Yeah.
And you see, I'm not mentioning corruption because we're so tied. I'm just out of the speech, and we're so tied in the parliament that we can't say corruption.
Well, you're free to speak here. This is
but
your space.
they have been one of the most corrupt. Well, not one of the most corrupt administration this country has ever had,
And is likely to ever see.
and correct.
No.
When you look at what has happened in the area of contracts, when you look at the magnitude of it, and that is what I said when I was talking about the oil and gas, they like to give infant companies adult responsibilities because it facilitates that corruption, that those backdoor deals. The companies can't do the work, but they're given a mammoth task, and so they have to have this under the table kind of arrangement so that both sides can benefit from each other.
Let's revisit this issue of cash transfers. This cash transfer issue, when raised by Dr. Clive Thomas, was under consideration by the AP and UFC. It was being studied. The People's Progressive Party discarded, junked this idea. It wasn't going to work. They didn't see getting money into the hands of the people of this country as important. They didn't see sharing the wealth of the country with the Guyanese citizenry as important. They wanted to keep it for themselves. It appears to me, and to people with whom I've spoken, that the idea of cash transfers to citizens only became attractive to the People's Progressive Party when they saw the Census 2022 report, which they refused to release up to this date. When they saw the population shift, the ethnic shift, and they recognized that this is no guarantee for them anymore. And they recognized that they were in really, really difficult circumstances. They were unpopular because of Sioux Gate and all the other gates that came by. And they thought, well, here's an opportunity. We could hoodwink the Guyanese with this same money. They believe somehow that the citizenry will forget that they said it was a bad idea. And so they got this money now to try to buy votes. I call it a massive rigging scheme. How can the citizens of this country put their trust in such an organization to lead them?
You know, Marv, you're absolutely correct. And if we were to go to the census, I believe you're spot on because of the shift that they would have seen in terms of the population. They decided to duck this report, keep it on wraps, that the population and the people of Guyana wouldn't know what exactly is happening. I think in their minds they're thinking if those figures are released, then there would be mass panic. People like to be on a winning side too.
Yeah.
People like to be on a winning side too. Yeah. And if they believe that the People's Progressive Party, if their own supporters believe that they no longer have this advantage because of ethnic voting, etc., then a lot of them might shift. And so I believe that is the main reason. Also, I believe the census will tell us a lot about the standard of living and how people are generally living in the country, and that too will affect them as the government, because they constantly boast about this oil wealth and all these things that they are doing, and all these infrastructure plans and all these things. But when a census will bring out the true figures, the true state of affairs of people's lives in this country. And you're correct again to say that trust is a major issue. If you have a government that is constantly scheming, hiding information from the public, misleading with certain figures, as they did with some of these things. Some of these things I brought out today in terms of gold, in terms of bauxite, they use certain figures and they play around with the numbers to fool people. But at the end of the day, people, I believe people are conscious of what is happening in the country. They're conscious, if not anything else, they're conscious about their own state in terms of the cost of living and the effects of the high prices, high food prices, and all the other prices that they're being faced with, and as against the low salaries that they're getting. And so I think that would be the determining factor. I don't think they will trust the PPP with anything come the next general and regional election.
But Shurwayne, you've lifted the quality of this debate. You have taken this to a place where I suspect the People's Progressive Party anticipates just criticisms because that's what they're about. They spent maybe two-thirds of the budget speech that Ashley Singh spent maybe two-thirds of the budget speech. So, as we say in Guyanese parents, abuse out the APNU AFC. And the other portion dealt with half measures and non measures. But you were there on the floor, you critiqued the budget, you pointed out in your limited time available defects that you saw in the budget, how it wasn't benefiting people of this country, and you laid out measures, alternative measures, something that has not been done in this debate before your presentation, in the manner in which you outlined it. I believe that the debate is richer for it, and I'd like to congratulate you on your presentation. And I trust that the work that you're doing, that you maintain the quality, the standard, and add some more right foot to that gas pedal as you move forward in your not so very young political career. Congratulations on an excellent presentation. And thank you for joining me in this conversation.
Well, thank you, Marv. Anytime. I'm always available to speak to the people, to speak to you, and to speak to the people of this country.
That was Shurwayne Forbes Kennedy Holder, chairman of the People's National Congress Reform, joining me in this conversation as we put Budget 2025 in focus. Budget 2025, the People's Progressive Party's farewell budget, and Ashley Singh's exit strategy, exit appearance.